an AppleVis original.
Where does the time go? We are here in June 2020. It's Apple's WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference, taking place this week. The keynote address happened today, and we are here to talk about it. My name is Dave Nason, and I'm delighted to be joined by my AppleVis colleagues Thomas Donville, also known as Anonymous, and Tyler Stephen. Guys, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Pretty good. I'm pretty excited. This is a little more exciting than it has been for the last couple of years.
It was a fairly jam-packed event, wasn't it?
Definitely.
And
they needed to do that more often, I think, because, without the crowd and everything slowing things down, it seems like it was more packed and it was complete 2 hours. I was shocked.
It was close enough, yeah. It was
an hour and 48 minutes. That's the time what I had. But I thought it was good to watch in that the crowd, there was no cheering or laughing or ooh-eyeing, and that really helps when people get handed off from Tim to Craig to the various other people who were coming and going. It happens very quickly, very smoothly. They had the little music transitions here and there, but other than that, very to the point.
Yeah. There was a lot of there was a lot of graphics going on, so they were in like little different digital spaces, and there was things flying around the place and everything, so they made it look very fancy, from what I could tell anyway.
Well, what I like about it the most, don't you, is that typically we have like 2 videos that would be 10 minutes long, and it's like, oh my god. And so they had no videos. I mean, yeah, they had
there's one or two short ones,
but they were like 3 minutes or so. It was real short.
Yeah, absolutely. That was good. It's interesting because I've been, the things like the Premier League football is back now, and I've been watching that without crowds, and it felt like that again. It was kind of like a completely different kind of atmosphere to it. But I think for this, yeah, it worked, and it was snappy, and despite the amount they had to get through, they did it without.
Was it like watching a game of golf in the United States?
Yeah.
Like golf, it's like sometimes I'll hear a golf game on TV in the States, and it's like it's so quiet other than the occasional applause when something is putted into a hole, the golf ball's putted into the hole. Other than that, you can't hear anything except the humming from the you hear, and other sort of ambient noise. But is it like that? Like
a little. Yeah, it's yeah,
it was well done. I thought it was very well done. I would love to see this format again. We got a lot to cover though, a bunch of stuff
Absolutely.
to cover.
And Tim Cook did mention at the start, it's a whole week-long conference, and I think he pretty much said anyone can join for free. You don't even have to be a developer to kind of watch some of the other events. So if there's a Apple developer app you can check out and go in and read the news and see what else they're announcing this, or not so much announcing, but if you're interested in any of the particular sessions to learn a bit more about stuff, you can do that. So it was well, we'll get to the hardware later, and I'll probably be deferring mostly to Tyler on that one, but we'll cover the software first, I think. And there was iPhone, iPad, watchOS, and there was things around AirPods and everything as well. So there's, as I said, a lot to go through. On the iPhone, some of the highlights we had were things like probably the big one was the new home screens and widgets. We also had some improvements to Siri, to messages, to maps. These new things called app clips. They're probably the big ones, I think. And then there's talk a bit about default apps as well for browsers and mail. So we'll talk about that too. And people will be wondering, as they always do, what devices are supported. And from my reading since the event, it looks like everything that ran iOS 13 will run iOS 14, which is great. So
That's
into
correct.
The home screens to start. Thomas, are you as excited as I am about this kind of refresh of the home screens?
At first, when I first heard about them talking about the home screen, about widgets being able to move it from today to the main page, I was worried. I was thinking, oh my God. But I wonder, I am excited to see how this works. I'll put it that way. I'm excited to see what kind of widgets I'll be able to put there. I think I'm more excited about the Smart Stack that they were briefly talked about, which for those that don't know what Smart Stack is, that you'll have a stack of widgets that are there that you can just go one by one. Now, my fear is I wonder how this is going to work as what we know now. Now we had the status bar, we had the dock, and then we got the home screen. And now it makes me wonder if we're going to have to relearn our touch explore area. Like this is where the widget's going to be, and this is where the home screen is going to be. So I'm excited. I am excited about this Smart Stack, and I am very curious about this app library a lot. It reminds me a little bit like the watch does, where AppleVis ties the app, but it sounds like it's got a lot more in there for us to do, and it gets rid of the pages. So I'm really excited about that.
I'm so happy about that. Like I've done a couple of little trials in the past, comparison with Android, and the one thing I always came away with that I preferred about Android was home screens, because you could just have a home screen. If you wanted, you could just have one home screen with the apps you use every day, and then you have your app drawer where you can just have all of your apps alphabetically. And I loved that, and you can kind of do something similar here where you can hide most of your home screens if you want, and just go to your librry when you want to have any of the other ones.
I think you can organize by your favorites, right? So you can have what you use the most.
Yeah, they spoke about different you can have categories, you can have alphabetical order, you can have categories, you can have most used apps near the top, or you can have things like your newer apps that you're still kind of testing out, I guess, and suggestions, I guess, as well, based on kind of, time of day and things like that, I think. Tyler, are you looking forward to this? Are you happy with how the OS worked before in terms of home screens, or do you think it needed this refresh?
Well, I think I haven't had any real problems with the organization of the home screen. If I install an app, I can usually apply some muscle memory over time. So I equate it to like learning in a physical environment, like a room or a building. If I know where to go, I'll know where an app is located. But it can be helpful at times if I'm trying to organize my apps or figure out, how many I have in, X particular categories, if I came upon a situation where I wanted or needed to know that. Sorting alphabetically, I know that's been requested, and there are ways, sort of roundabout ways to do that, but this is one looks to be much more intuitive. As far as widgets, I'm hoping what it will be is, well, for one, the keynote, what they were saying today, and the impression I came away with was that you could take widgets in Notification Center and put them onto the home screen. What I'm hoping is that they can be navigated when not being used, can be navigated like you would navigate a view of apps, like in a grid, but then you could expand them and collapse them as you see fit. If you're trying to find, say, weather information, you move to weather. You can picture, you could be an option to expand the widget, view the information at a glance, then collapse it, get it out of your way, so then the home screen goes back to its normal, so it's not so cluttered.
Yeah, and it seems there's different size widgets as well. So you might have a mini widget with weather. You might have a small one if all you want to see on your weather widget is the current condition and the temperature. That's fine, but maybe you want a larger widget that will also give you tomorrow's forecast. I don't know. I'm making that up as I go along, but that kind of thing where you'll have different size options for various different apps, which could be cool. And I think it'll snap into the grid really, like on your home screens, like apps do, but you'll be able to have widgets in there as well.
Yeah, because I know widgets, that's one of the things on other mobile operating systems that has another long requested feature.
Definitely, yeah. And I guess you don't have to use these new things in a way as well, because you can still have your home screen full of apps the way you always did, and you can have 5 or 10 screens if you want to. But if you want to just have 1 or 2 home screens of your favorite apps, hide all the other ones and just go to your library alphabetically for anything else that's not in your kind of day-to-day or whatever.
I think right now it's just hard to get my mind to wrap around how it's going to sound and feel. So once we get the beta going, and we'll let everybody know how that works. But knowing Apple, this is going to be pretty seamless. It's just a new experience that we'll have to learn. But, as you said, David, you don't even have to deal with the widget. You can just move them out and so you can just go back the way you like it. So you customize this. So giving us the ability to customize the home screen was a huge welcome. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. That's the thing I'm probably looking forward to most about playing with the first beta. There was some talk about Siri, and I suppose every year there's talk about Siri, and every year there's a great appetite to hear about Siri, because everybody feels like some of the rivals have better assistants. I think Siri is very good in certain circumstances, and it has its strengths and weaknesses, I guess. But they're talking about launching apps quicker. It's not full screen anymore, so it won't take over your whole screen. So I don't know, I guess maybe to more visual users that was a big deal, that it sort of blocked everything else that you were doing out. Whereas to voiceover users, maybe that's not as big of a thing.
Hard to say. It's another one I have to wait, because they say that the Siri is in compact mode. They use that word quite a bit, the compact UI. And what the one thing I did like about the new announcement was the audio message, that we can now use Siri to send audio message for text. That was the only thing I could think of that would be useful for us. But they did not make any mentions of improvements. I mean, like you said, I can ask a lady all sorts of questions that Siri will always send me to a website. So that really hasn't changed. It was kind of disappointing. I really need to fix on that. But I am kind of worried about that. What do you mean compact mode? How is that going to work? Is that going to hover on top, and that'll be the only thing we hear on VoiceOver? Can we tap on other parts while Siri is in the other section? I don't know. And they said the phone works that way too. And I was like, ooh, I'm not sure how that's going to happen, because I'm in the middle of something, my phone's ringing. Is that going to be predominant pop-up, or if I have to go hunt for it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's particularly whatever about Siri, because that's just popping up and you're actively doing something or saying something. But with a phone call, again, they said it's going to be compact, so it's almost like just a notification coming in to say you got a phone call. So is it going to be more difficult to find that answer button? I don't know. That's what I'll be curious to see.
Yeah, my understanding from the keynote and what I've read in the immediate aftermath of the keynote is that the notification would come in as a banner, and you tap, the way this is described, tapping it to answer and swiping to decline. So for VoiceOver, I would assume that'd be something like you'd reach up to the top of the screen, like any other notification for an email or a text or whatever. You double tap to answer, and then declining would be something you would swipe down, say with a rotor action. And I would assume that other things like reply with message or remind me, other things would be also in that rotor, if that's indeed how they choose to implement it.
Yeah, possibly.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it would be like a notification. You'll just have to tap toward the top. Again, this will be like the home screen. It's going to be an all new learning curve for us to understand how to answer the phone call. So it isn't right up front anymore. I think that would be, I don't know if it's just something I have to try, see over time, see if it's something we learn and if we like.
Yeah. And assumably the magic tap will still work as well, hopefully. Something else they said about Siri was there's going to be more on-device actions. So things like dictation and translation will happen now on the device, so no servers. And it was a big theme, as it always is these days with Apple, the privacy side of things. And hopefully that will happen. Will that maybe improve speed of if it's not having to send off my requests all the time to a server?
Definitely, I would like that service a lot. The translation, they were really pushing hard on that Chinese English thing, weren't they?
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I was thinking, well, what about our German friends or French, Italian, and all those different languages? I hope that I'm assuming there will be a default that will help us be able to translate to other languages.
Oh, I assume so. I think that was just for example, really. Yeah, I'd assume all the languages that are supported, you can choose any, really, hopefully anyway. Messages now, you guys know I'm not a huge user of the Messages app, but there were some big improvements to this. Tyler, do you use Messages much, and do you think are they catching up with the competition with these updates?
Yes, I use messages a lot. iMessages and texts with, say, family members and other people. And one of the improvements that I'm most excited for is better organization of group texts. I've had several group text streams that are just convoluted beyond belief. People texting each other, different things pertain to different members of the group. And you can mute notifications, but then you mute it forever. You mute things for all texts in the group, and then you don't know what pertains to you and what doesn't. So now there's a way to mention people, like you mentioned. Say if you're going to tweet something on Twitter, you could mention them so the person being mentioned would get notified. And now this is being brought to the Messages app, which I think will be very helpful, so that if I get, if I'm in a group text that's just blowing up and I'm just not interested in the other side conversations that are occurring that I'm part of, but that aren't pertinent to me, I could just turn those notifications off and only choose to be notified when I'm specifically mentioned. Now, that sounds really good in theory. In practice, I guess we'll have to see, because that a feature is only so good if people know how to use it and use it well, where it's most effective. And so if it's, obvious and intuitive how to mention someone in a text stream for someone who might not think to do it, or, might be less experienced, that would be helpful. Yeah, because if it's overly complicated to mention someone, like on Twitter, you have to have the handle and everything, and so not everyone.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that if they make it obvious or intuitive for everyone in the text, that it will be, it will become like second nature. It'll become very widely used.
In WhatsApp, you what you do is you type the @ symbol, and then you just start typing the person's name, and a suggestion will pop up, and you just select it. So I'd imagine it would be something along those lines as well. Fairly simple. Yeah. You'll also be able to pin conversations to the top, which if you were a busy message user and maybe you have a family group or something like that, or your partner or something like that, and you just want that thread at the top all the time, you can do that. Tom, do you think you'll take advantage of these new features? Or
I think I will, definitely. I'm a heavy message user myself. What I think what's going to come down to messages is that we thought it was pretty top heavy already. It's going to be a lot heavier than it was before. I think we're going to have a lot more rotor actions, definitely a lot more rotors. I predict that all these mention stuff is going to be easy as tapping on a person and swipe up to mention or to reply and things like that. I do. That was my top favorite, was pinning the conversation to the top. I do get a lot of text messages from a lot of different people, and I don't want to have to hunt for something. I always put my top favorites towards the top, so I'll pin it. The ones I always talk to, like my family, will always go to the top. So I am really excited to see how the group works, because I do use group heavily. And if it makes things a little bit easier, I'll be all for it. But it sounds like it's getting kind of bloated in there for good reasons, but I will have to see. Like Tyler says, right now it's difficult to find certain things. You have to go in a couple of clicks down to find certain things. I hope that is more seamless and more not so very deep. It sounds like they're trying to make things more accessible by one swipe, one click areas.
Hopefully, yeah. And I think group improvements will be huge, because I know anyone listening on my side of the Atlantic will know that WhatsApp groups are an absolute phenomenon. People you're just in so many different WhatsApp groups for any work or a club or sport or anything you're involved in. You're probably in a WhatsApp group, and family and so on. And because they're so easy and so seamless really to manage, and so if Apple can do that, I think it'll be huge, because Messages is a Definitely. Hugely used app.
And I think they know that. It's like you said, the Google Android has had this for some time, and so I think they finally made it more mature. They had to push it so people will start to use more of the message. And not only that, but iMessage obviously is for Apple ecosystem, so they're trying to make it more exclusivity. Make things better.
Yeah, absolutely. They moving on from Messages, and they did announce some improvements to Maps. So they launched the new maps a few months back, really over the past year, I suppose. They've been improving maps in the US, and that's moving beyond the US now to the UK, Canada, and could I believe my ears, Ireland as well was one of the just 3 countries mentioned. And things like cycling and stuff, which I guess not too many of us are cycling unless it's on a tandem, but it's good to see them. They seem to have caught up quite a lot on maps, actually, and
this huge. It is a big update. Obviously, as you know, the United States have had this update for 6-7 months or so, maybe longer. There's new maps. I'll be honest. I'm just in disbelief that it hasn't gone beyond the United States. And then on top of that, I was also in disbelief and almost disappointed that they only mentioned Canada, UK, and Ireland. And what happened to Australia? What happened to China? What happened to other countries? I was like, what the heck? But yeah, the cycling, I mean, if you got a tandem bike, I guess, but it is, they made it more kind of like what the walking route is. You'd be able to tell. And I like the option you can avoid stairs. It was like, so that was pretty cool. And I like the option to touch you about if there's any really steep inclines and things like that, allow you to know. But the maps kind of got a yawn from me. I wasn't too impressed.
Yeah, me too. I don't use them that much, but yeah. So,
what about you, Tyler?
No, I don't use maps. I mean, I haven't really been much of anywhere in these past couple months. I've just been largely homebound, like many people. But yeah, even still, I don't do a whole lot of navigating. I don't never really had a use for the Apple Maps app. So I suppose if I did, maybe I would, dig this a little more, or maybe would check out some of these features, but it's not something that I'd, rush to look at and test out.
Yeah, exactly. And along similar lines, I guess the new car features are pretty cool. Probably not so important for us, our community, but I think it is kind of cool that you can have a sort of an Apple Pay type experience for opening your car and starting your car, and you could even loan your car to somebody else by like sending them a code or something on your
Was phone. That impressive or what? I thought that was so cool, and I love it how you can restrict, like, only certain times they can have it, so they can't. She was mentioning for teenagers, this is only good for, but that is just you think about it. I what I loved about it the most was that I believe they said that would be more universal. If that's true, that would be awesome. But obviously only one brand of BMW. I was like, I'll sure pick a BMW, something that's not real cheap. And but I hope to see, within 10 years, that would be more of a go-to thing. Like 10 years ago, all we had was car keys, with the
exactly,
And now we have this just a fob, and we don't have keys now. Maybe in 10 years we'll have just mobile that does it.
Yeah. And I mean, CarPlay started off on just a few kind of premium brands as well, and now it's becoming pretty ubiquitous, I think, as is Android Car as well. Another really interesting one, and I'll be interested. It's one of those ones again, until we actually get to use it in practice, it's going to be hard to kind of maybe get our head around what it's going to be like. But this is the new app clips, which seem to be the ability to download sort of mini apps without fully downloading the app. So you could go to a terminal that has an NFC and tap your phone, and it'll offer you that kind of bit of an app, or on the web, or somebody can send it to you with codes and all sorts of things. So yeah, what did you make of this, Tyler?
I think that could be quite useful. There's talking about both NFC and QR code based ways of doing this. I'm hoping that NFC becomes the dominant, because the idea of scanning codes, just for me as a totally blind person, does not sound particularly appealing at all. But I'm hoping with NFC I can just tap the phone. So if I went to somewhere like a store or an airport terminal or something and didn't want to have to download the app, because it seems like every business that wants to succeed in the 21st century, they have an app. But if you go to if you're not loyal to one particular brand or store or whatever, you over time you're accumulating this list of apps. And so every once in a while when I do some spring cleaning, I clean out my phone, I have the apps for a store I went to once 2 years ago, and like it's like, why do I have this? Why do I have that? Like, and if I'm going to go to someplace once, I don't want to have to go in and download an app, or I just want to be like a one and done. Maybe if it's someplace that I'm that I frequent or want more perks out of, then I would be more likely to use an app. But if otherwise, an app clip could be helpful, or I could use it just for that one time and just be done with it.
Yeah, Tom.
In theory, obviously.
Tom, what did you make of it?
Well, I'm kind of not. I guess. That's a tough question to answer because so essentially, what I understand, the app clicks is more like a light version. So, for example, we have meters here in downtown Kansas City. So some of the places I have to go for clients, we have meters, and we have to download this app to be able to pay the meter. And they got these smart meters. So if this makes it possible where I can just tap my phone on the meter and it pulls up the light app and I don't have to fully download the meter app itself, that's awesome. Because, I don't want to have all this nonsense apps. However, on the other side of the coin, I don't see this going to be as widespread as you think it is. Restaurants, really, I don't understand that one at all. Especially if you're an ice cream shop or whatever they mentioned, I don't see this because we already do online ordering, and you got to have the full app to be able to do online ordering. So I don't understand what the restaurants and things like that. I'm having a hard time seeing this fly, even with the QR code or RFID. Now the RFID will work on the meters, scooters, anything that you don't have any person to interact with. You have to fully download. Like we have something called the bird scooters. We just tap the phone and it downloads a light version of the bird, and that would be awesome. I don't think it's going to be as well used as people think it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm a bit unsure as well. And even something like that example, I think, if I'm living, we've the Dublin bike system here, for example. If I'm living in Dublin and using that system, I'm going to download the app because I'm using it all the time. But if I'm visiting your city, for a weekend, then maybe I do just use the app slice. Maybe that's kind of the difference. But I don't know
how often would you do that? It's not going to be very often, but it is there, and it's going to be something that I'll forget. Especially if we can't see if it's RFID. We have that problem now. Knowing what is and what isn't RFID. And we just learn over time, the bird, you just put it right here on this thing. And then on the meter, you just put it here. So it's a learning process. But I was hoping that it would give us I was really hoping the app clip would give us a flavor of something that before we can buy it or something, that it give us a light version, see if you like it or something. But that's not the case.
Yeah.
So
for me, it's like, I think it's a really interesting idea, and I'm really curious to see how it'll actually work, or like you say, if it'll be a nice idea that doesn't practically...
Right. Is it going to be widespread?
Will people find good ways to use it, I suppose, is ultimately the question.
Yeah, exactly. It took forever just to get Apple Pay to work. So that means people will have to purchase something and put this out, and it's only for Apple phones? I don't see this happening as quickly as people think, and we'll see. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, me too. Hey, Tom, you're into your weather apps, I think. Are you a Carrot Weather or a Weather Gods or a default weather app user, or all three, or something else?
I have used them all. I really have. I am excited big times on this one, especially when they bought the dark skies. This is going to be awesome. The weather on dark skies, using dark skies. Right now I use something called Weather Office, and I also use Weather Gods from time to time, but I use probably 6 different weather apps.
Tyler, do you use weather apps much, and would it be the default weather? And because this I think Dark Sky Edition is probably the big change.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've used default weather most often. I have used Weather Gods. I've never used Dark Sky or Carrot Weather, but yeah, that'll be interesting. Anything that could make the default weather app, or any native app or any first party app more functional or more robust for that matter, would be a welcome change.
Definitely, yeah. Because I think Weather Gods is great, but I find the native weather app just quicker and easier to just pop into and get the quick bit of information that I want and leave again. So this just helps that weather information be a bit more accurate, then I'm on board.
Well, that's what the widget's going to be for. Maybe the Weather God will have a widget and you can get your in-depth stuff. But I would love to use the native weather by default. If it gives me the details I want, I would do that hands down, especially with dark skies. Especially
that rain, to the minute rain information when you live where I do. That's you can have 4 seasons in one day. So that will be great. I suppose nothing to talk about, and at this point, it doesn't seem to be 100% clear if this is on iPhone and iPad, but we think it's on both, and that is the ability to change the default mail and web browsing apps. This is something that's been demanded of Apple for a long time. A lot of people have been asking for this. They didn't make a big song and dance about it, or they didn't even mention it. In fact, it was just up on a slide, apparently, which is where some of the media picked it up. But this is a big deal.
You wouldn't talk about it. It is a big deal because they didn't make it any stink about it. It's because that's their default bread and butter. That's their mail. That's their Safari. Of course, they don't want to make a big deal out of a web browser because, they tout about the Safari so heavily in this keynote. So that's a big deal to them. But it is an iOS. I did double check that. So it's just you can change your default email and your default web browser. I think that's huge. I would rate that number 2 underneath the new home screen widget stuff. That is how big it is for me. I'm extremely excited to be able to use a different browser. I love Safari, don't get me wrong. It's just sometimes it doesn't load right. I use something called Brave, which is a little more top for security, and I like this different things in there. But which we'll talk about, Safari has a lot of new features, so we'll see. And if you use Outlook, hey, you can use that as your default mail. And obviously they don't want to tout Google in there or Microsoft, so I can see why they didn't mention that.
Definitely, yeah. Tyler, do you use defaults, or will you be switching over? Do you think is it something that will matter to you?
I just use the defaults for my use case; they suffice. But that's a potential game changer for pro users because people who use Outlook or the Gmail app, and if they're using, say, a different web browser and they click a link to go to send an email, they don't want that to open in an app they don't use. They want it to make a clear and consistent workflow. So that it's something that's been requested for a long time. And it makes sense they didn't talk about it much during the keynote, but yeah, it's nonetheless it's a very welcome improvement.
I am curious
to make it even more like a computer. Yeah.
I am curious how that will work in in-app surfing. How you have apps that will just bring up a browser inside the app instead of going out to Safari. I'm curious if there still will be Safari, or will it go to your default?
That's a very good question. I would think it would go to your default. So yeah, like you're thinking if you open a link in Twitterific or something like that, is it where it doesn't go out to the other app, but it just brings up a web view within that app? Yeah, absolutely. Be interesting to see. Now on iPad side of things, where we now since last year we have iPad OS as a sort of separate OS, but at the same time it shares still pretty much everything with the iPhone with some additions. So iPad gets everything the iPhone does, plus a few other things, but it wasn't that rich in new features, the iPad this year, I didn't think. But there was things like new interface changes, really, not an overhaul, but just a few kind of changes, new sidebars and toolbars and things like that, which sounds a little bit more computer-like. So again, the pro users and things like that, and people who are using a mouse and things might find it useful, but maybe it'll be easier for us as well to find things if you always know there's that sidebar kind of over on the side. So there might be a familiarity almost with Mac kind of in that sense. We'll wait and see. and things like Scribble as well, and maybe low vision people. There's probably plenty who still use handwriting, for, in notepads and things like that, and the ability maybe to then handwrite with an Apple Pencil onto the glass screen and have it turn into regular text is pretty cool, isn't it?
I totally agree. I wasn't totally underwhelmed by the iPad. I think my fear was that you noticed that it was so visually intense. I mean, it was so, they were saying I could just put my finger and put it right here and here and here and here. And I was thinking, well, that's great. I think visually, it's going to be a major update for those who have low vision or have vision. They will be able to take advantage of a lot of things. I think it's cool. I thought the big one for me, and I think a lot of us, will take advantage, and they said that we also include the iOS, is the new condensed toolbar. Now, the toolbar, I really like that. They said that instead of having all these number of buttons or things to hunt for, it's all now combined into one place. I really like that, and they really heavily emphasize the sidebar. I'm curious how that's going to work for us, if it's going to be something that we do use as heavily as a visual person or not. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Tyler, you don't have an iPad, do you? Or am I incorrect?
No.
Yeah. So, I have to admit, I haven't used mine for work that much. I've tended to use it more for consuming, YouTube and Netflix and things. So, but I'm always kind of curious to try doing actual kind of work on it. So again, I'll be looking at this, and I think that sidebar and toolbars, I think maybe they could be a much better way of organizing things and a cleaner interface. So yeah, I think it's watch this space.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the same features we're talking about, the compact search, improved search and compact Siri as well. And yeah, the Scribble feature as well, which I think could be pretty cool to be able to handwrite. There was a mention then, which this one took me a bit by surprise, was around AirPods. Just because I didn't expect to hear about AirPods today, I guess. But
yeah, well, I wasn't either, because that's not an OS. It's more like a firmware,
Yeah, exactly. And there was two things. One was spatial sound, so things like Dolby Atmos and things like that. This sort of surround sound with only two earbuds in your ears. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And also an update for kind of more automatic switching of audio. And this, I'm very curious to see how that works for us as voiceover users, because do we want voiceover to keep switching every time you look at your watch? Do you want it to go over to your watch? Because there's times I do want that, but there's times I definitely wouldn't want it. So I would love a manual kind of, a gesture or something that I could choose to cycle. But, this is an automatic thing. You guys, Tom, you definitely have AirPods, don't you? I'm not sure about you, Tyler.
I don't have AirPods, no.
Oh, I thought you did, sorry.
But I am very curious about the spatial audio a lot. I am curious how that's going to work exactly and where it's going to be used and things like that. But I'm with you. They were really definitely trying to tighten the ecosystem with that AirPods, like being able to pass things to everything. It'll be curious if that thing becomes more annoying and you do it by accident. Then for practical use, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I would assume it'll be toggle. There'll be a toggle for that feature. But yeah, again, I've been wanting a better way, because if I'm out and about, I find it hard to use my watch because it's quite loud when you're out, walking down the street or something. And I'd love to be able to, use my watch using my AirPods without having a big rigmarole to get it to get the sound across from my iPhone. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Definitely, I'll be trying that out. And yeah, we don't know, is this a firmware update that's coming out now, or is it coming out during the beta cycle, or is it something that will come out in September, October? So we'll just have to wait and see.
If I had to guess, it's probably baked into the iOS 14, and it's probably a firmware that only comes with the iOS 14.
Yeah, I would. That would be my guess as well. So I was wrong about you having AirPods, Thomas, but I know you have a watch.
I do.
So there were some interesting stuff here. Yeah, I think the multiple app complications could be interesting. There's certain apps that you maybe want to have more than one complication from that same app, giving you different pieces of information. That's kind of cool. And the face sharing, They're both very interesting updates.
Yeah, I love computations a lot, and the more that we can do with it, the more. I really love the fact that they're giving a little bit more power to the computation instead of just a one-liner. They were talking about how you can have multiple, and I really like that. And I thought it was interesting how I can build a face and then share it with you, and so you get the same face and the same computations that I set up. So I guess suppose if you saw somebody's watching, so that's really cool, but you don't want to have to take the time to do it. They can just share it with you, and then everything gets downloaded. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like that. And developers even be able to say, "Hey, here's a one that we made that is designed to work really well with the complications we do for our app." You know what I mean? And so people,
can you imagine?
People have been asking for a kind of a watch face store, and I don't know if Apple will ever do that because they want to keep that level of control over how these things look to some extent. But this is sort of almost feels like a compromise.
Yeah, they were loosening up a little bit, hadn't they?
There's also a few sleep tracking as well, which is something a lot of people have been asking for. And I expect the sleep tracking to come with a hardware update rather than a software one myself.
That's what I thought too. I was thinking, I wonder what watch that will work for. If that isn't a foreshadowing for the new watch coming up that will have more of that sleep cycle reports that they mentioned about. I am really curious about this cooling down at night, being able to know when you go to sleep. It just says, it starts to change the environment and things. So it's letting you know it's almost time to go to sleep kind of thing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I can't decide if I would actually use that or find it annoying. So we'll wait and see.
I agree. I'm still one of those people who's like, I have a choice. I either wear this during the day or wear it at night. I can't do both. So
I wear it all the time. I charge it for maybe 45 minutes in the morning and an hour before I go to bed, kind of thing, while I'm reading or listening to an audiobook. But I'm wearing it the rest of the time pretty much.
Yeah, you have to make sure you have to charge. It is, but you have to remember that. So I guess when you wake up, before you take a shower, put that on charge.
Yeah,
good
that's
shower.
My routine is breakfast. Like wake up, pop the watch on the stand, go and have get a shower and everything, and then it's charged up by the time I'm ready to go, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So I'm interested to see it. I've never been sure. I've never been fully sold on sleep tracking because I kind of feel like I know if I've had a good night's sleep with it. I probably don't need my watch to tell me, but still curious to see kind of is there useful data that can come from it. Tyler, I don't think you have a watch, do you? And if not, is there anything here, are you seeing developments that would lean you towards getting one?
I do not have a watch, and this doesn't really change that. Like you said, sleep tracking, I feel like I know I have a basic, based on the time of night, I have a basic idea of when I fall asleep and when I wake up. I just wonder what that means, because they've been rumored to be including sleep tracking technology in a future hardware update. So if they add software support for using the Apple Watch's existing hardware, like the gyroscope or accelerometer or things like that, how will they market this new one with sleep tracking? Will they call it enhanced sleep tracking, and how will they describe that to the consumer? Yeah, that'll be an interesting.
Yeah, definitely. There's also hand washing tracking, which it'll detect when you're washing your hands and tell you if you haven't been washing them for long enough.
That was kind of cute.
Very topical. I think it's fair to say.
And by the way, that sleep is also going to be for the iOS, they mentioned.
Oh, they did, yeah. So obviously,
so that's software based, but I think, like Tyler was saying, I think the hardware base is, again, it's a foreshadow. I think the new watch is definitely going to have some capabilities in there that will be able to detect when you're kind of half asleep or when you're deep asleep. I bet you it's going to know that.
Yeah. Wait. So How would sleep tracking on an iPhone work without without a peripheral? We'd have to be,
It's
would
not
it be
the
in your
same.
pocket, or
It's not what you think it
It's
is.
more the
When
bedtime mode and everything, I think,
yes,
isn't it?
it's more of a bedtime to calm you down. It's about nighttime, and it's going to put yourself to do not disturb. It's not going to track your sleep time or your sleep cycle. So remember that this software is not really meant to be a sleep cycle kind of a thing. That I like Dave said, I think it's going to be the watch is going to be coming up that will have that feature.
Yeah, so we'll see. And for those interested, watchOS 7, from what I can see as well, or what I've read today, is that it will go back as far as the Series 3 Apple Watch. So if you have a Series Original or a Series 1 or Series 2, you will not be able to update to watchOS 7, from what I read anyway.
Yep, it's not the same as iOS 13. If you have Series 1 and 2, you're out.
Yeah. Another thing they announced today and talked about today was around Home and HomeKit. And interestingly, it looks like they're working with some of their competitors, I guess, the likes of Amazon and Google, on a new universal standard.
Dun, 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 dun. That was me falling off my chair when I heard that. Yeah, when they mentioned there was universal HomeKit, meaning that future HomeKits will now all be able to be nice with each other. You can now scan your opponent's Amazon products and actually put that into your home app. I thought, wow, your Google stuff. I was like, it's about time we all got along and because that has been so frayed. I mean, the fraction of separation of all the different things that we buy. I mean, we all in a fault for that. I mean, I got a Samsung TV, I got a Amazon Echo, I have a Google Nest, I have a Ring, and they're all different ecosystem. It drives me bananas. And so now, if we can make this all universal, I am so for it. I'm so glad they're going to do that.
Tyler?
Yes, that's a very interesting development. But it makes sense because the smart home market today is just so fragmented. So, if it makes sense, because it would ultimately benefit everybody, like a win-win, because if consumers aren't so confused by the various options, and then people would be more likely the smart home products will become more accessible, maybe less intimidating to the average user. More people are buying them. It makes sense. One interesting thing that they were saying today was that HomeKit has with HomeKit Secure Video or something about face recognition. So if you have a camera, then and someone comes up to your door, and if you tag their face or if it recognizes their face, it will notify you that that person is at the door. And if you have a HomePod, it will speak out, so and so is at the door. But one interesting thing about that is, and I don't know how Apple plans to handle. I know they're very mindful of privacy. They have an incentive, perhaps, over other companies, more service-based companies, in this regard, to protect users' privacy, since they're making their money off the hardware. But like I think about video doorbells. To my knowledge, Ring and Nest, the two leading ones, don't support HomeKit. But for ones that do, or if these ones do in the future, will they have to show not only the privacy policies for their apps to get approved or to continue to be approved in the App Store, like they were saying today, how apps will have to disclose their privacy policies on their page. The user can get their privacy policy right from the page. Can they also do that with HomeKit accessories, like with Ring and Nest? And if so, and given good, the quick option to opt out if, say, because I know the Ring has relationships where they have databases where law enforcement can access face data. And of course and face recognition as a means of surveillance is widely,
it's a hot topic,
grossly inaccurate.
The thing with it though is they talked about how for that facial recognition, it'll be based off people you've tagged in the Photos app. So I think that part of it is going to be through HomeKit specifically. It's not going to be through the accessory app, the accessory maker. That's going to be coming from Apple, I think, and it's going to be secure. I'd be very surprised if Apple would go down that road in a way that wasn't.
Yeah, you're right, Tyler. I mean, the question is, I think you're going to have those privacy issues. I mean, you obviously know Google and Amazon's got their own issues. I don't think Apple's going to do much about it, unfortunately. I think that they knew they were losing the HomeKit, which just wasn't taken off as they wanted to. So I think this is their way of trucing and doing a universal. So I think some of the things that they featured, as Dave said, it's going to be phone-based, so it's everything you can do on your phone. However, if you have the full-blown app installed, obviously, if you know, some of the new Ring does have facial recognition, and so it's built into the app itself. So it's hard to say what direction they're going with that. Now, one thing we forgot to mention too was the App Store. If you're concerned about the privacy, one of the cool thing is that when you now look at an app before you download it, now they have this new privacy section where it tells you how much data it shares, and if it's a little bit, not much, or a lot. And I love that new feature as well.
Yeah, that to get approved, the developers now have to provide Apple with a statement of what they will, of their privacy essentially, but what they will use their data for. I think that's very
privacy
cool.
policy.
Yeah, and another privacy thing that came up was in Safari, where basically on any page you go to, you'll be able to click a button that will, again, tell you about what tracking cookies and things exist on this page, like what's going on from that point of view. Or,
How cool is that? A privacy report that tells you what they have and what they don't have on you. And I thought that was, boy, you knew they were talking to, I'm looking at you, Google, when I'm talking about all the privacy stuff. It was like so blatant and obvious, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was pretty obvious. But I think anytime that privacy information can be consolidated, because if you go on Google or Amazon and look at account controls for, if you go to manage your data, the information is just spread out over so many different pages, and you're able to opt out of one thing and then the other thing. So yeah, anything that puts information in a consolidated, easy to view, interface, I'm all for it. And as far as, I was going to go back briefly, to the HomeKit facial recognition privacy, I'm wondering if, I would assume that if someone tags a person, so it recognizes their face, I would assume that would be on device, that face recognition data would not go anywhere. But I wonder at the same time, intentionally, but at the same time, if there could be oversights and what those oversights might be when interacting with HomeKit accessories. Like if one day that Ring supports HomeKit or Nest supports HomeKit, where does that come into how do their privacy policies interface here? Like where does Apple draw that line when working with their competitors?
Yeah, it's something I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, that's something and probably more questions than answers at this point.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Why don't you know, Dave? Didn't you watch it?
But that's true, though. I think, that's a definite question. But I think you're right as well when you talk about bringing more people into this kind of area of buying these kind of accessories, because that fractured kind of landscape was not inviting to ordinary people at all. So just knowing you can buy something, and whether you're on Google or Amazon or Apple or whatever, or a mix of them all, that you'll just be able to use that device with whatever you got. I think that's huge.
My question is, where's the love for the HomePod, the Home OS?
Well, the HomePod confuses me because they keep talking about the media keeps reporting how it's not sold very well, and yet they've still only released it in about 5 countries. So
where's the love?
I just don't understand that, what they're going for with HomePod at the moment.
Exactly. They kept putting this in with the home itself as a home and all, and then I mentioned like every so often they'll make, and for your HomePod, it'll work this way too. And it's like they never mentioned about any new HomePod OS at all. I was like, interesting.
Yeah, very much. And another thing that didn't get a whole lot of time was Apple TV. What really they spoke about improved AirPlay in some way, shape, or form, and picture-in-picture, and was Apple TV Plus service itself coming to more like Sony and Vizio TVs and things, and then showed a clip of Foundation, which is a book I read, and I'm looking forward to that show, I must say. But there wasn't I suppose there's probably only so much you can do with Apple TV at this stage.
You can tell it was obvious when they threw in the Apple TV Plus Foundation. It was kind of like, what did that have to do with Apple TV? But I was like, okay, maybe they just had to throw it in there to make it look a little bit better.
Yeah. So I like my Apple TV, and like I say, the apps work. I'm happy. It's a strange OS in that sense. It does what I need it to do, I guess. So I'm not sure. It's not like there's a big outstanding thing that I want them to do that they haven't. Except that I'm not a big fan of the TV app itself. I don't think it's. I think it could be overhauled actually. Now that I think of it, but apart from that.
Now for the big stuff, man. Dun 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 dun.
Into the Mac, which is
into the Mac,
which is interesting. Big Sur is our Mac OS version this year. So some of the highlights they mentioned, again, there was a lot more visual stuff, so it feels like Mac and iOS are almost sort of merging in some ways, doesn't it? Things like Control Center will be there now. Changes to Notification Center, widgets like iOS, again, different shapes and sizes and everything as well, and doing a lot of the same functions. Improvements to Catalyst, which I think our community hope include accessibility improvements to Catalyst.
We're all crossing our fingers on that one.
Yeah, the Messages and Maps apps will be Catalyst apps now. And I shouldn't assume that people know what Catalyst means. Catalyst apps are those sort of Mac apps that are built on iPad or iOS kind of foundations. So they're kind of like ported over almost, but they're slightly rewritten. Tyler, you can probably explain what Catalyst is better than I am.
The development frameworks are, to make it supposedly unified development frameworks that they make an app for that's originally on iOS and they can port it with minimal additional effort through Xcode.
Cool, yeah.
Now I have to ask,
but it doesn't have the same.
Does it scare you? Does it scare you that the Catalyst is starting to get more predominant when it's not very accessible?
Well, Catalyst needs all the improvements it can get. It hasn't taken off like Apple has probably hoped it would. And I don't know what the improvements are, what the changes are precisely when it relates to accessibility. Obviously it's today. I haven't had any chance to test any of this out. But if today, say if hypothetically I got a message, say the Messages app with the current iteration of Catalyst, I would not be a happy camper, because Catalyst has a number of issues that the apps that I've used, they're usable. They just don't feel very Mac-like. VoiceOver isn't as snappy as they are with native Mac apps. There's a lot of refinements that need to be done before I would feel like a Catalyst app is a native Mac app that I would really use regularly.
Now, curious what you both think about the Control Center. I thought that was a big thing that they mentioned in the.
I'm struggling to picture it because at the moment I'll VO twice to get to my menus extra bar, where I have my Wi-Fi and my, and so on. So I'm not sure how it plays with that. Is it an extension of that? Is it a separate thing? Do they? I'm interested to see how that works. Yeah,
because that seems. The way they're describing it today, it would seem redundant to have menu extras and Control Center. So I'm almost wondering menu extras has been there for a long time, so this isn't easy shoes to fill, but they could conceivably take what was in menu extras, put it into the new Control Center if they want to really unify Mac OS and iOS, or, unify the design language between Mac OS and iOS. But I guess, again, that's, because I know they talked a lot about the design today, the visual design. That doesn't mean much to me or anything to me at all, really. So what matters to me is that it's, that things work with VoiceOver as I expect them to, and only time will tell there. Safari got some good updates
Extensions is a big one, isn't
privacy, it? Yeah, extensions. They have more. You can now change. You can customize what level of access extensions have to your browsing, which is pretty important because extensions have had historically very wide latitude in what data they can access about users' browsing business. So you can now limit extensions for use on only one website, only for one day, or unlimited use. And this could also help potentially stimulate extension growth in Safari, because right now there are extensions that can be distributed, from the Mac App Store. But if you compare the extension market for Safari versus, say, with Google Chrome, you can't even compare. But hopefully with more, interest, if there's increased user interest.
I think as well as the increased user interest, I think they specifically said that they've implemented something that makes it easier for people who have developed Chrome extensions to bring them across to the Mac, to the Safari, I should say.
To Safari.
So if you've got a huge library there, like you say, on Chrome, and Microsoft have tapped into this as well by, switching Edge over to the Chromium. So it's kind of like everyone's accepted Chrome has... Chrome's is the biggest browser in the world now, and it has all these extensions, and... Yeah, maybe.
And it makes you wonder what they mean by that. If it's a developer tool that allows them to convert it easily.
That's what I took from it.
Okay, so it would be like a cool toolkit that they can actually take an extension that already exists in Google Chrome and bring it over to the Safari extension without having to.
A bit like how Catalyst makes it easier for someone to bring an iPad app over to the Mac. This will make it easier, I think, for a developer to bring their Chrome extension over to Safari. That's what I took from it, and I would stand to be corrected, of course.
It's pretty exciting.
Hopefully smoother fashion, but in more widely adapted. But yes, that's what I would agree. I would concur. Concept. I would concur. Yeah,
that's exciting news, and I hope. I wonder with all this. A lot of it was visual design talking and how it looks different and things. I would hope that for low vision folks out there, this means some good news, as in things will be a little better to see and easier to identify and things like that. Let's hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's pretty much everything I can think of for Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was the chip transition.
Well, I was going to come to the hardware next in a moment, but...
We're still thinking software. I think
software. There was a new translation feature for Safari. I don't know if iOS is getting that, because they talked about that in Mac and they didn't specify whether or not iOS and iPadOS were getting that. But the idea to translate something that's not in a language you speak, you can change it to something you do and it will translate. I don't know how that works.
Is that worth going into?
Are they trying to compete with Google? Are they trying to compete with Google Translate or something? Or
I thought that was also for iPad, but they didn't mention iOS, like you said.
Yeah, but there's translation in Siri. Will we leave that?
It's from Mac. Yeah, I think it's from Mac too. Wait, is it from Mac too? I got the impression that it was on Mac OS too.
Yeah, there's definitely a mention of translation on Mac. Yeah.
And one other little thing, it thought it was or maybe not significant, but numerically significant. Since the year 2001. Versions of Mac OS have been 10.x, so 10.0, 10.1, 10.2, whatever. Now we're on 10.15, Catalina. Big Sur is now Mac OS 11. That was interesting. So are they not? Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to be like, it makes sense because all of Apple's other OSs are, 11, 12, 13, 14,
Yeah.
So are they going to now go Mac OS 11, Mac OS 12, Mac OS 13? It would make more sense.
Isn't it?
Yeah. If they decide to do that, the 10 numbering sequences suited us quite well for almost 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I always thought when they got to after 10.9 they might go to 11, but they they just kept going.
Yeah.
So Big Sur is going to be OS 11. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, Mac OS 11. Yeah.
Although they did drop the X a few years ago, didn't they?
Yeah. It was like Mac OS 10. It was Mac OS 10 and then OS 10 and then Mac OS.
Mac OS, yeah. And then we've got accessibility changes. We haven't got a huge amount of information yet, at least, about accessibility. There is a statement on their website talking about new kind of enhanced audio features. which will kind of improve, amplify kind of softer sounds and things like that for people who need that. Sign language support in FaceTime video, so to make someone doing sign language more prominent, and it will automatically recognize that, which I think is pretty awesome, I gotta say, that it's able to do that. And there's talk of voiceover improvements in terms of being able to recognize things and make more. It sounds like trying to use AI essentially and machine learning to make things that haven't been coded properly to work with voiceover work better with voiceover. Is that what you're grasping from that statement?
Yeah, it was obvious that the AI is still learning and maturing out, and they're going to try to emphasize more on the web what you have landed on, so it'll tell you more description of different things on the page. The headphones accommodation sounds like a huge thing for me. That definitely will be something, because I've always wanted a preset. Since I have hard of hearing, I wear headphones a lot. If I can preset different sounds to softer, louder, that is huge for me and for those that are hard of hearing out there that use your headphones a lot. So the headphone accommodation is very welcome. I'm thrilled to death to try that out.
And as far as I can tell, this is across all platforms. This is iOS, iPad, Mac, everything, I think.
And the FaceTime predominant sign language is also a big indicator. I love that. So in other words, if you're doing sign language, it's going to be more, I don't know how they're going to do that, if it puts it more centered or what, but it's supposed to improve the visibility of sign language over FaceTime.
I think the way FaceTime video generally works is it'll have a load of kind of thumbnail size things for each person, and then whoever is speaking gets pushed forward to be more prominent. And I'm guessing it's going to improve that. If somebody's doing sign language, it's going to make sure that they are prominent even the whole time. Maybe you're speaking and I'm doing sign language, that'll make sure that I'm on screen. And
that makes sense, because right now it only predominant person is the person that's speaking, so it pops up them, so it will automatically detect sign language. That's cool. I love that. That's
really cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we know about accessibility so far. But again, we'll be testing these softwares out over the summer, and come the autumn, the fall, we'll hopefully know a bit more about it, and Thomas's series will be out.
Yeah, definitely, and stay tuned to the AppleVis Unleashed. Comes out monthly. I will be talking about all the new features of iOS 14 that comes to for accessibility. So stay tuned to that.
I think that wraps up the software, but before we do wrap up completely, Apple did announce a pretty major new hardware thing as well today, which is that, and it has been rumored for quite a while now, but that they are going to move away from Intel-based Macs. So Intel chips will no longer be in the Macs come a couple of years down the line, and it'll be their own ARM-based, Apple customized chips. So like what they designed their own chips for iPhone and for iPad, they'll be designing their own chips for Mac as well. Tyler, you're probably best placed to tell us a bit about what this is all about.
Okay, so this has been a long time coming. They transitioned from the old PowerPC. I don't know if anyone on here remembers PowerPC Macs. I came in on the very end of that. I had probably one of the last PowerPC Macs to be made or, to be released. And then in 2006, they transitioned to Intel because the PowerPC line was stagnating and they needed the next generation, the next decade or so that Steve Jobs predicted would be best served with the x86 Intel architecture. So in that case, it's a bit of a deja vu in the sense that how many times in the last couple of years have we seen persistent chatter on rumor sites, new MacBook Pro updates imminent, new MacBook Air, new iMac is due to be released, or the steady chorus of Intel reveals new processors appropriate for this machine, that machine, the other machine. But the problem is Intel has the processors that Apple uses in their Macs from Intel. Those have stagnated, suffered the same fate of the PowerPC when they were still using that architecture. Intel's release schedule, things have been delayed. Apple can't update the Mac as reliably now. Certain Mac models go much longer without updates than I, as a consumer, would expect, and probably more time than Apple originally plans for Mac models to last without being updated. And finally, I think it makes sense from a development from software development, if Apple has this much clout developing chips, very powerful chips for the iPhone and iPad and other hardware that they make, they could move that to the Mac, simplify their development resources. So that's their rationale for doing it. So, wait, were you going to say something? Or?
I was going to say, yeah, I suppose it's they talk a lot about having more control now over, I suppose, like with the iOS devices, they control the hardware and the software, and they can integrate things the way they want now, I suppose, that little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's Apple has beaten the drum the last couple of years warning Intel, you really need to step up your game because our ARM chips are starting to outpace you on some of the lower end models of your Intel. And as Tyler says, it seems like we've been getting slower updates to the Mac because we're having to wait for the Intel to actually come out with a chip that's actually worthy of an update. If you take a look at the PC side, back in the old days when we had PowerPC, that was like the chip to have. And like Tyler said, it became stagnated. Intel was just like year after year, it was just doubling its speed, and it was really predominant. I mean, we were updating computers a lot. Now, if you look at the past 10 years, and we all have, for those who have Windows out there, you're hanging on to the PC a lot longer. Why? Because Intel hasn't really changed their game all that much. And I think this is an awesome opportunity for Apple to start to compete against Intel in terms of, I think it's going to be incredibly fast within 5 years. So year after year, we're going to get the speed that they've been wanting, the speed boost each and every year that the Intel used to have. But I think what's the most important thing about the ARM is that it's the same processor all across their devices. Yeah. Everything has ARM chips, and that means huge. And I was just stunned when they said you can just natively bring iOS and iPad apps over and it'll run just fine. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
But, I'm curious if Tyler, I remember back in the days when the PowerPC went to Intel, it was a huge nightmare of switching over because a lot of apps wouldn't work. And so I think they kind of calm people down that do remember those days of that nightmare with the Rosetta 2, making the process, the emulator, much more seamless for older processors of the Intel now coming over to the ARM, which I thought was really cool.
I suppose there's two types of customers now that will be asking these questions. There's the people who have recently bought an Intel Mac wondering, will people keep making apps for my one, or do I have to update this thing next year? And then there's obviously the people who buy the new ARM-based Macs wondering, will my old software work? There's kind of two questions there.
Well, they made that pretty clear. They were trying to calm people. They say, hey, right now, Logic Pro, Microsoft all have native coding in there for both. So that was good to know. They were trying to say, hey, if you buy this for the next couple of years, you're going to be fine because this natively will work for either one. Now, in 5 years from now, when it comes completely ARM, it makes you wonder if the software will eventually just go strictly to ARM, and will those within Intel will be as well.
They did say, though, there's still Intel Macs in the pipeline. So even there's still Macs with Intel that haven't been released yet that will be released this year.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I think there's going to be an iMac, right?
I wonder as well about,
rumored,
especially that high-end Pro. Like if you have a Mac Pro running Intel Xeon chips in it, you know what I mean? The very high. Like, how long is it going to take them to overhaul that kind of stack?
That's going to be the kind of power. But I think what'll happen is that most apps will be universal binaries, what they're calling universal 2. I guess they're recycling all of the terms they used from their transition to Intel, now transition from Intel, like Rosetta and Universal Binary. But yeah, so they're I assume that most apps will be written in Universal in time. I'm wondering if there are certain things that can be only harnessed with ARM-based apps, in which case developers may, over time, switch exclusively to the ARM platform. But I think Mac OS itself will run for quite some time on Intel Macs, because if someone just bought an Intel Mac, they don't want their software to become obsolete, in 6 months from now. Apparently, they want the goal is to get the first ARM-based Mac by the end of this year. And that sounds pretty ambitious. I mean, they'd be beating their timeline for 2000, from 2005 2007.
I don't know.
I think that one I could understand, but the target they also set was the whole line to be done within 2 years. Now that sounded ambitious.
Yeah,
that's ambition. Yeah, you got to remember, Tyler, they were showing it off. A mini.
Yeah.
You can get a Mac Mini if you're a developer. You can sign up for this program, and you can get one by the end of the month, I think.
Yeah. So
maybe, maybe they've been trying to do this for a long time. So maybe they're using the experience that they've learned from, say, the T1, which is what powered the original Touch Bar MacBook Pro, and the T2 that now powers a lot of Macs. So maybe they're using some of that experience, in developing, native Mac architecture.
I would imagine they've been running these ARM Macs in Cupertino for like 5 years plus.
I think so too.
Somewhere I'm like,
what I've been reading and what I've heard, Tyler, was that my understanding the 13-inch models are the first one is probably going to be more likely to get it. Now, as you say, it's definitely going to take time. This does not mean Intel's going away anytime soon, only because the high-end Intels are still going to beat the ARMs hands down. You cannot beat an i10 with an ARM right now with like the Xeon and stuff. There's just no way. Intel still have the heavyweight, but when Tim says we're going to do a full transition over in 2 years, it's like Dave says, now that's being ambitious. That means you need to top Intel's highest core chip out there. Because I am very curious. What I want to know is benchmark. That's going to tell you everything. I want you to benchmark today's Mini with the ARM chip with the A12Z. And what does that compare to the Intel? I bet you it's going to be probably an i7 level, but it's not definitely the high-end ones.
No, yeah, that's interesting. Another thing they haven't mentioned, but it's been speculated on, various places leading up to today, is what does this mean for running Windows with Boot Camp or virtualization software like VMware Fusion?
Oh yeah,
but
how's that gonna?
Microsoft are working on an ARM-based version of Windows, I believe. So
really, that would be huge. Because I was just like Tyler. That was my first thought. I said, if it's ARM-based only, well, Windows ain't going to work on a boot camp. How's that going to work?
Yeah, and they did talk about virtualization as well. So things like
use Linux as an example.
Linux was mentioned, yeah, but I wonder.
Yeah. Or maybe that makes, from a competitive point of view, they don't want to advertise their competitors.
Exactly, yeah. Linux isn't a threat. Linux is you could sell Linux to people as like, well, that's people use it for servers, but they don't want to be talking about Microsoft. They're happy to talk about Microsoft apps on a Mac, but they don't want to talk about a Microsoft Windows operating system.
Yeah, just like the default. Yeah, I'm extremely excited. I think this is huge. I mean, not right now, but about 2 or 3 years from now, when they actually prove themselves with A13, A14, A15s, we'll see if the power is so much more than Intel. That's huge. Now you got to remember, this is exclusively only for Apple, so the Apple computer is only going to get this chip. So that really gosh, I mean, all these time Intel on a PC has always kind of dominated things. So maybe things will change finally.
Yeah, well, we will see.
Yeah. I mean, financially, Apple represents a small portion of Intel's sales, so in that case, it won't. It'll be just a drop in the bucket. But maybe if other competitors see where this is going, and if it goes well for Apple, Intel, they're going to have a problem on their hands. And maybe they're going to find themselves in a way they won't.
I actually don't know.
May not have a solution.
What Chrome OS runs on? Is it ARM or is it Intel? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I tried a Chromebook once. It was with an Intel Atom. It was 1.04 gigahertz, something really slow, but it was slow in processor terms. It was
a lower scale.
Adequate.
Yeah, it's a lower scale Intel.
But I'm wondering if, because Chrome OS is very scalable, there might be ARM-based Chromebooks somewhere.
That'd be hard to say because the ARM is designed for the Mac hardware. That's what makes it so unique, is that they don't have to worry about all these different graphic cards, hard drives. It's unique for that. So
the Apple design silicon.
Right.
Yeah, it's Apple design on the ARM infrastructure, but there is ARM for other companies as well, like using a similar infrastructure. But anyway, we're probably getting into the weeds there.
Doesn't Apple license ARM's designs, and they can customize it, tailor it to their thing, and then make it's ARM based, but it's Apple customized essentially.
Something to that effect.
That's my understanding of it. I don't know if that's exact. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out anyway, though. I just got a MacBook Air a couple of months ago, so I'm hoping to get at least 2 or 3, 4 years out of that, and then maybe I'll see how these ARM things are looking. So I think that pretty much wraps us up, guys, doesn't it? It was an interesting show, a jam-packed show, and that meant we had a pretty jam-packed and long chat here as well. So if you stuck with us, thank you very much for listening. Thomas, thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on. It was a keynote was better than I anticipated.
Absolutely, yeah. And Tyler, thanks for joining me as well.
Thanks, yeah.
And guys, check out the Apple Unleashed over the summer. Thomas will be talking plenty more about iOS 14 and macOS and so on, particularly iOS, I would think. And of course, when it all drops in the public releases in September or October, whenever it may be, then there'll be plenty of coverage here on AppleVis.com. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the AppleVis Extra. To learn more about us, visit our website at www.applevis.com. Follow us on Twitter @AppleVis and like us on Facebook.